Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of her salvage ship Opportunity, watching the swirling purple nebula gases part before her vessel's deflector shields. After 15 years of searching derelict ships and abandoned stations, she developed an instinct for valuable finds. The reading on her scanner made her heart race. Something about this signal was different. "Maya, are you seeing these energy signatures?" Sarah called out to her sensor specialist, her eyes still fixed on the ethereal view before her. The nebula's radiation had kept most salvagers away from this sector, but Sarah had modified their shields specifically for this expedition. "I'm seeing it, but I'm not believing it," Maya Rodriguez replied, her dark eyes narrowed at her holographic display. "The energy pattern doesn't match anything in our database. It's not Nexus, not Hegemony, not even old Earth tech. Whatever's out there, it's completely unique." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. In a galaxy where the Nexus Confederation controlled most advanced technology, unique usually meant valuable. The Nexus, with their crystalline bodies and rigid thinking, had dominated space travel for centuries. They tolerated humanity's expansion into space, but always with an air of condescension, treating humans like clever children who needed supervision. "Kai, take us in closer," Sarah instructed her pilot. "Full passive scanning, no active pings. Let's not advertise our presence." Kai Wang's fingers danced across his control panel with practiced precision. The Opportunity glided forward, its modified engines barely a whisper in the vast silence of space. As they penetrated deeper into the nebula, the scanner signal grew stronger. "Hold position," Sarah ordered as a massive shape began to materialize through the purple haze. "Maya, give me visual enhancement, maximum clarity." The viewport's overlay activated, cutting through the nebula's interference. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Before them floated a ship unlike anything she'd ever seen. Its hull was composed of overlapping plates that seemed to shift and ripple even as they washed, despite the vessel being clearly powered down. The design defied conventional spaceship architecture. There were no clear thrust vectors, no obvious weapon ports, and the entire structure seemed to flow like liquid metal frozen in time. "That's impossible," Kai whispered, voicing what they were all thinking. "Ships don't bend like that. The structural stress would tear it apart. Unless..." Sarah's mind was already racing ahead, connecting dots others might miss. She'd spent years studying alternative approaches to spaceship design, theories that the major powers had dismissed as impractical. "Maya, can you detect any signs of quantum field manipulation in the hull structure?" Maya adjusted her scanners, then let out a low whistle. "The entire ship is wrapped in overlapping quantum fields. They're dormant now, but if they were active..." "Sarah, this ship could literally rewrite its own physical structure on the fly." "A metamorphic vessel," Sarah breathed. She'd read theoretical papers about such technology, but everyone had said it was impossible. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical, and the computational power needed to manage such complex transformations would exceed any known AI's capabilities. "We need to get aboard," Sarah decided. "Kai, find us a docking point. Maya, keep scanning for any signs of active security systems. And someone wake up Dr. Marcus. We're going to need our resident physicist for this one." As Kai maneuvered them closer to the derelict ship, Sarah's wrist computer chimed with an alert. Her heart sank as she read the message. The nebula's interference had delayed it, but there it was, an official notice from the Nexus Confederation declaring this entire sector restricted space. "Sarah," Maya called out, her voice tense. "I'm picking up approaching warp signatures, big ones, Nexus military configuration." Sarah looked at the mysterious ship, its hull still seeming to flow like quicksilver, even in its dormant state. The Nexus would impound it, study it with their rigid methodology, and ultimately abandon it when it didn't fit their inflexible understanding of physics. They'd never see its true potential. "How long until they arrive?" Sarah asked. 20 minutes, maybe less if they push their engines," Maya replied. Sarah squared her shoulders. She hadn't become the most successful salvage engineer in the frontier by playing it safe. "Kai, Get us docked. Maya, start full spectrum scanning. I want every bit of data you can get. We have 19 minutes to make history. The docking procedure proved challenging. The mysterious ship's ports didn't match any known configuration. Sarah had to manually override their docking collar settings, using her expertise in engineering to modify the magnetic seals on the fly. As the airlock cycled, Dr. Marcus finally arrived on the bridge, still pulling on his environment suit. The elderly physicist's eyes widened as he took in the view. "My God," he whispered. "It's beautiful." "It's about to be beautiful and illegal," Sarah said, checking the seals on her own suit. "Nexus ships are on the way. We have 15 minutes to get aboard, gather what data we can, and make a decision." "A decision about what?" Kai asked. Sarah smiled grimly. "About whether we're about to become criminals or walk away from the discovery of the century." The airlock opened with a hiss, revealing a corridor that seemed to defy Euclidean geometry. The walls curved and merged in ways that should have been structurally impossible, yet Sarah's engineering sensors showed the design was actually more stable than conventional architecture. "The quantum fields aren't just for show," Dr. Marcus said, examining his own readings. "They're integrated into the very fabric of the ship. It's not just metamorphic. It's a complete reimagining of how matter can behave in space-time." They made their way deeper into the ship, every step revealing new impossibilities. There were no right angles, no straight lines. Everything flowed and curved, yet somehow remained perfectly functional. The ship wasn't designed, Sarah realized. It had grown, like a crystal or a living thing. "Bridge should be this way," Sarah said, following her scanner's map of power distributions. "Assuming this ship even has a conventional bridge." They found it, or rather, they found what had to be the ship's control center. Instead of the usual banks of computers and pilot stations, they discovered a chamber that pulsed with soft light. The walls were covered in what looked like liquid metal, and in the center stood a single crystalline structure that hummed with dormant energy. 10 minutes. Maya's voice crackled over their comms. Dr. Marcus moved to the crystal, his instrument sweeping over its surface. "This is incredible. The crystal structure. It's like a quantum computer, but orders of magnitude more complex. It's not just processing information. It's actively manipulating reality at the quantum level." Sarah approached the crystal, drawn by something she couldn't quite explain. As she neared it, the liquid metal walls seemed to ripple, and for a moment she thought she saw patterns forming in their surface. 7 minutes, Maya warned. Sarah made her decision. "Maya, begin emergency protocols. Transfer all scan data to our secure servers. Kai, warm up the engines. Dr. Marcus, I need everything you can tell me about this crystal in the next 5 minutes." "Sarah." Kai's voice was cautious. "What are you planning?" She touched the crystal, and for a brief moment, she felt something. A presence. An awareness. "We're not leaving this ship for the Nexus to bury in red tape and bureaucracy. Whatever this is, wherever it came from, it's too important. The Nexus will charge us with theft," Maya pointed out. "Only if they catch us," Sarah replied. "And something tells me this ship has a few surprises left. Dr. Marcus, can we power up this crystal safely?" The physicist checked his readings. "Theoretically, yes. The quantum fields are stable, just dormant. But Sarah, we have no idea what might happen when we activate alien technology this advanced." 4 minutes until Nexus intercept," Maya announced. Sarah looked at the crystal, remembering every time the Nexus had dismissed human innovations as primitive, every time they'd used their technological superiority to maintain their position of power. This ship represented something different, something they hadn't been able to understand or control. "Sometimes the biggest discoveries come from taking chances," Sarah said. "Maya, Kai, get back to opportunity. Disengage the docking collar but stay close. Dr. Marcus and I are going to try something either brilliant or stupid." As her crew reluctantly retreated, Sarah turned to the crystal. "Any ideas how to wake this thing up?" Dr. Marcus adjusted his scanners. The crystal appears to respond to quantum fluctuations. If we could generate a specific frequency. Sarah was already pulling tools from her belt. Like this. She activated a modified scanner, sending carefully calibrated pulses into the crystal structure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal began to glow, and the liquid metal walls of the bridge came alive with swirling patterns. The entire chamber seemed to breathe, and Sarah felt that same presence she'd sensed before, stronger now. Nexus ships dropping out of warp. Maya's voice crackled through the comm. 2 minutes until they're in tractor beam range. The patterns on the walls were moving faster now, forming and reforming in complex geometries. Sarah realized they were equations, engineering diagrams, the ship trying to communicate in the only way it knew how. Dr. Marcus, she said, not taking her eyes off the flowing patterns. How good is your quantum mechanics? The physicist was already recording everything. Good enough to know that what we're seeing should be impossible. These patterns, they're not just equations. They're instructions. The ship is trying to teach us how it works. Sarah smiled. Then let's be good students. She reached out to the crystal again, and this time, when she touched it, the entire ship came alive around them. In orbit, the Nexus ships emerged from warp to find their quarry already waiting. But as they moved to surround the mysterious vessel, something unprecedented happened. The ship's hull began to flow like quicksilver, its entire structure reimagining itself before their eyes. Sarah Chen stood on her new bridge, watching in wonder as human intuition merged with alien technology. The Nexus had rejected this ship because they couldn't understand it. But sometimes, she realized, not understanding something was the first step to discovering something revolutionary. Now, she said quietly, both to her companions and to the ship itself, let's show them what happens when human creativity meets unlimited potential. The metamorphic ship pulsed once with energy, and then, defying every known law of physics, it slipped away into the nebula, leaving the Nexus vessels to ponder how they'd let such a prize slip through their crystalline fingers. Light years away from their encounter with the Nexus patrol, Sarah Chen and her crew worked to understand their extraordinary prize. The metamorphic ship had carried them to safety through means that defied conventional physics, but now floated quietly in a remote asteroid field, its liquid metal hull reflecting the dim light of a distant red dwarf star. Dr. Marcus hadn't left the bridge in 3 days, his usual methodical approach to physics giving way to almost childlike wonder as he studied the ship's systems. It's not just the quantum fields, he explained, gesturing at his holographic displays. The entire ship thinks in quantum states, where we see either or it sees all possibilities simultaneously. Sarah nodded, remembering how the ship had escaped the Nexus patrol. It hadn't jumped to hyperspace or opened a wormhole. Instead, it had somehow existed in multiple locations at once, then collapsed into a single reality at their desired destination. The experience had left even Maya's enhanced sensors confused about what they'd witnessed. The Nexus couldn't understand it because they think in absolutes, Maya added, looking up from her own analysis. Their technology is advanced, but it's rigid. They build machines to do specific things perfectly. This ship, she waved at the flowing walls around them, this ship does everything imperfectly, but it can do anything. Sarah ran her hand along one of the liquid metal surfaces, feeling the subtle vibrations that seemed to pulse through the ship like a heartbeat. The patterns that had first appeared when they activated the crystal now flowed constantly through the walls, forming and reforming in response to their presence. It's learning from us, Kai said quietly. The pilot had been the most skeptical about their theft of the ship, but even he couldn't deny the marvel of what they'd discovered. Watch. He approached one of the wall patterns that resembled a navigation interface. As he neared, the flowing equations shifted, reorganizing themselves into something that looked remarkably like a standard human flight control system. That's not just mimicry, Dr. Marcus pointed out. It's synthesis. The ship is taking our concepts of space travel and merging them with its own understanding. It's creating entirely new ways of moving through space. Sarah was about to respond when a new pattern caught her eye. The liquid metal was forming what looked like a warning signal, though not in any format she recognized. Before she could decipher it, Maya's console lit up with alerts. Multiple ships dropping out of quantum space, Maya reported, her fingers dancing across her adapted interface. Nexus signatures, but different. These aren't patrol ships. They're research vessels. Through the viewport, Sarah watched as 3 sleek ships materialized. Their crystalline hulls sparkled with complex geometries, marking them as vessels of the Nexus Science Division, the true power behind the Confederation's technological dominance. "They tracked us," Kai said, moving to his station. "But how? We didn't leave any quantum wake they could follow." "They didn't track us," Dr. Marcus said grimly, studying his readings. "They predicted us. The Nexus might not understand this ship, but they understand patterns. They calculated the most likely places we'd hide." A communication request flashed across their screens. Sarah took a deep breath, then nodded to Maya to accept it. The bridge's main display filled with the image of a Nexus Archsage, one of their leading scientists. Its crystalline form pulsed with internal light as it spoke. "Salvager Chen." The Archsage's translated voice carried clear notes of both authority and curiosity. "You have taken something you cannot possibly understand. For your own safety and the safety of this sector, you must surrender the prototype." Sarah felt a familiar surge of defiance. "With respect, Archsage, I think we understand it better than you did. This ship isn't a failure. It's just different from what you expected." "You are clever. For a human," the Archsage conceded, its crystalline form shifting to indicate what Sarah had learned was amusement. "But cleverness is not understanding. This vessel was part of an attempt to create perfect adaptive technology. It failed because it adapted in ways that defied logic and control." "No," Sarah countered, a realization striking her. "It failed because you were trying to control it at all. Look at these patterns." She gestured to the flowing equations on the walls. "They're not random. They're responsive. The ship doesn't want to be perfect. It wants to collaborate." The Archsage's form pulsed with what might have been surprise. "Impossible. Technology does not want. It functions or it fails. There is no middle ground." Dr. Marcus stepped forward. "Actually, there's a fascinating quantum principle that suggests consciousness itself might exist in superposition. If this ship operates on quantum principles at every level, then perhaps—" "Enough," the Archsage interrupted. "Your theories are irrelevant. You will power down the prototype and prepare to be boarded. This is not a request." Sarah looked at her crew, seeing in their faces the same determination she felt. They'd discovered something revolutionary, not just the ship itself, but a whole new way of thinking about technology and consciousness. She wouldn't let the Nexus bury that discovery under their rigid definitions of success and failure. "I have a counter-proposal," Sarah said. "Let us continue our research. We'll share our findings with you. Maybe there's something to learn from how humans approach problems differently." The Archsage's form crystallized into sharp angles, a sign of disapproval. "You would presume to teach us, we who guided your species to the stars." "We're not trying to teach you," Sarah replied. "We're offering to learn together. This ship doesn't belong to either of us. It's something entirely new." As if in response to her words, the ship's quantum crystal pulsed with energy. The flowing patterns on the walls accelerated, forming complex geometries that even the Archsage seemed transfixed by. In that moment, Sarah felt the ship's presence more strongly than ever, not as a tool or a weapon, but as a bridge between different ways of thinking. "Remarkable," Dr. Marcus whispered, studying his readings. "The quantum fields are forming new configurations. It's as if the ship is trying to demonstrate." Before he could finish, alarms blared across all their systems. Maya's eyes widened as she read the incoming data. Multiple anomalies detected. Something's coming through quantum space. But these signatures, they're like nothing I've ever seen. The Archsage's image flickered as its own ships detected the disturbance. Impossible. These readings suggest quantum coherence on a massive scale. No known technology could. Reality itself seemed to shiver around them as space tore open in multiple locations. Through the ruptures came ships that seemed to be made of darkness itself, their forms barely visible except where they blocked out the stars behind them. Unknown vessels are launching weapons, Maya reported, her voice steady despite the impossible situation. They're targeting both us and the Nexus ships. Sarah looked at the flowing patterns on the walls, then at the quantum crystal pulsing in the center of the bridge. In that moment, she understood why they had found this ship and why it had responded to them. The universe was about to show everyone the value of being able to adapt. Archsage, she called out, even as the first energy weapons from the dark ships reached out toward them. I suggest we continue this discussion after we deal with our uninvited guests. Unless, of course, your perfect weapons can handle quantum phase attacks. The Archsage's form rippled with what might have been uncertainty. Our defenses are calibrated for all known weapon configurations. But these aren't known weapons, are they? Sarah turned to her crew. Dr. Marcus, Maya, let's show our Nexus friends what happens when you stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be creative. The ship's quantum crystal pulsed with energy, as if eager to prove that sometimes the best solutions come from embracing the impossible. The dark ships struck with devastating precision. Their quantum phase weapons passed straight through the Nexus vessel's perfect shields, leaving crystalline hulls scared and systems failing. Sarah watched as the proud research ships, packed with the most advanced technology in known space, began to drift helplessly. Their weapons are operating on multiple quantum states simultaneously, Dr. Marcus reported, his fingers flying across his adapted interface. They're not just bypassing shields. They're attacking all possible configurations of the shields at once. Maya, full sensor analysis, Sarah ordered. Find me a pattern in their attack strategy. Kai, keep us moving. Random vectors, no predictable course. And someone get me a channel to the Archsage's ship. The metamorphic ship responded to their commands with fluid grace, its hull constantly shifting to present different aspects to their attackers. Unlike the Nexus vessel's rigid shields, their adaptive quantum fields flowed and changed, making them a much harder target to pin down. Channel open, Maya reported as the Archsage's image appeared on their main display. The crystalline being's form was fractured in places, damage from the attack visible in its physical structure. Archsage, Sarah called out, your ship's shields are too perfect. They're trying to be an impenetrable barrier in a single quantum state. That's why these weapons cut through them like they weren't there. Impossible. The Archsage's translated voice carried notes of both pain and confusion. Our defensive systems are the most advanced in known space. They cannot simply be bypassed. They can if the weapons exist in all quantum states at once, Dr. Marcus interjected. Your shields are like a perfect wall. But these weapons simply manifest on both sides of the wall simultaneously. You need something more adaptable. Another blast rocked the Nexus ships, and Sarah watched in horror as one of the research vessel's crystalline structure began to crack. The dark ships were moving with terrible purpose, their forms seeming to blur and shift as they prepared for another attack run. Sarah, Maya's voice cut through the tension. I've been analyzing their attack patterns. They're not random. They're systematic. They're testing responses, learning from each attack. These ships, they're like ours. They're adaptive. Sarah's mind raced. If these hostile ships operated on similar principles to their own vessel, then maybe, Dr. Marcus, the quantum crystal, can we use it to communicate with these ships, find out what they want? The physicist adjusted his instruments. Theoretically, yes, but the quantum harmonics would have to be exactly. He was cut off as their own ship shuddered under a direct hit. Hull integrity at 60%, Kai reported. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. Sarah turned back to the Archsage's image. Listen to me. We need to work together. Your ships have power and precision. Ours has adaptability. If we combine them. Impossible, the Archsage interrupted. Our systems are not designed to integrate with primitive. Your systems are dying. Sarah snapped. Sometimes the best solutions aren't designed. They're discovered. Now, can your ships generate a quantum resonance field? The Archsage's form shifted in what might have been resignation. Yes, but it would require dropping our remaining shields. Good. Dr. Marcus, take that resonance and sync it with our quantum crystal. Maya, feed them targeting data from our adaptive sensors. Kai, get us between those ships and the Nexus vessels. We're going to try something either brilliant or suicidal. As her crew rushed to comply, Sarah felt the ship's presence more strongly than ever. The flowing patterns on the walls were moving faster now, forming complex equations that seemed to anticipate their needs. The quantum crystal pulsed with energy, and suddenly Sarah understood. It's not about matching their quantum states, she said aloud. It's about embracing uncertainty itself. Maya, are you getting this? Her sensor specialist nodded excitedly. The ship is showing us. Look at these patterns. It's not trying to predict where the dark ships will be. It's calculating where they won't be. The quantum crystal's pulse synchronized with the Nexus ship's resonance field, creating a harmony of energy that filled space around them. The dark ship's next attack passed through empty space as their targets existed simultaneously in multiple quantum states, probability itself becoming their shield. Now, Sarah commanded, show them what adaptation really means. Their ship's hull flowed like quicksilver, extending quantum-infused tendrils that connected with the Nexus vessels. Through these links flowed not just energy, but understanding, human intuition and creativity merging with Nexus precision and power. The liquid metal of their hull began to form new patterns, not just mathematical equations now, but a bridge between different ways of thinking. The dark ships paused in their attack, perhaps sensing that something unprecedented was occurring. In that moment of hesitation, Dr. Marcus made a breakthrough. They're quantum signatures, he exclaimed. They're not random at all. They're a language. These ships, they're not attacking us. They're testing us. The quantum crystal pulsed again, and this time the patterns it formed were different. Not defensive algorithms, but complex communications protocols. The dark ships responded, their forms becoming more distinct as they shifted to match the new quantum frequency. They're a scouting party, Maya translated, reading the incoming quantum data. From somewhere else. They've been searching for others who understand quantum adaptation. All their attacks were calibrated to be survivable. They wanted to see how we'd respond. Sarah looked at the Archsage's image. They weren't looking for perfect technology. They were looking for technology that could grow, adapt, communicate. They found your ships wanting, but when they saw ours working with yours, the Archsage's form shifted through complex geometries as it processed this revelation. Perhaps, it said slowly, there are different kinds of perfection. The ability to adapt, to integrate disparate systems and ideas. This too could be seen as a form of perfection. The dark ships were moving again, but differently now. Their forms solidified into shapes that combined geometric precision with fluid adaptation. A new signal reached them, not an attack this time, but an invitation. They want to share information, Dr. Marcus reported excitedly. Their quantum technology, their understanding of adaptive systems, they're offering to teach us, both humans and Nexus. Sarah felt a smile spread across her face as she watched the flowing patterns on the walls form new configurations, human mathematics merging with Nexus precision, and the quantum language of their mysterious visitors. Perhaps this was what the metamorphic ship had been waiting for, not someone to master it, but people willing to learn from it. Well, Archsage, she said, still think human creativity has nothing to teach you. The crystalline being's form shifted into what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of a laugh. Perhaps, Salvager Chen, we all have something to learn from each other. After all, is not the greatest adaptation of all the ability to recognize when one's own understanding is imperfect. The quantum crystal pulsed with energy, and Sarah could have sworn it felt like approval. The universe, it seemed, had plans of its own for those willing to embrace the beauty of uncertainty and the power of working together. 6 months after their encounter with the dark ships, Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her metamorphic vessel, watching as dozens of ships, human, Nexus, and the mysterious quantum nomads worked together in an unprecedented collaboration. The quantum crystal pulsed steadily, its patterns now a harmonious blend of all three civilizations' mathematical languages. The simulation is ready, Maya announced from her station, where holographic displays showed complex quantum probability matrices. The Nomad's latest data suggests the dimensional breach will occur within the next 48 hours. Dr. Marcus looked up from his own calculations, his face grave. And this time, it won't be a scouting party coming through. The void entities they were fleeing. They'd found us. Sarah nodded, remembering the quantum nomad's warning. Their mysterious visitors had revealed they weren't explorers by choice. They were refugees, fleeing from beings that existed in the spaces between quantum states, entities that consumed probability itself. The nomads had been searching for civilizations advanced enough to help them fight back. Arcsage, Sarah called out, and the crystalline being's image appeared on their main display. The months of collaboration had changed the Nexus scientist. Its form now incorporated flowing patterns that would have once been considered imperfect. How are the quantum shield modifications proceeding? The integration of human adaptive algorithms with our precision field generators has exceeded expectations, the Arcsage replied. Though I must admit, the concept of intentionally introducing controlled chaos into our systems still disturbs me. Sometimes a little chaos is exactly what you need. Sarah smiled. Maya, show them the latest sensor data. The display filled with a visualization of the approaching dimensional breach. Unlike normal space phenomena, this anomaly existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, making it appear as a fractal pattern of overlapping possibilities. Conventional weapons will be useless, Dr. Marcus explained. These entities exist partially outside our reality. The only way to fight them is to match their quantum uncertainty while maintaining enough coherence to actually affect them. Which is why we need all three of our approaches, Sarah added. Nexus precision to maintain stability, human adaptability to create unexpected solutions, and the Nomad's quantum mastery to bridge the dimensional gap. A new alarm blared through the ship. Energy spike, Maya reported. The breach is accelerating. New estimate for arrival, 2 hours. Sarah felt her heart race, but kept her voice steady. Sound the alert. All ships to battle positions. Begin quantum shield synchronization. She turned to the Arcsage's image. I hope your people are ready to embrace a little imperfection. We are ready. The crystalline being replied with what might have been amusement. Though I must note that our calculations suggest only a 47.3% chance of success. Then we'll just have to adapt that probability. Sarah smiled. She turned to Kai. Take us into position. Maya, begin quantum field modulation. Dr. Marcus, sync our crystal with the Nomad network. Let's show these void entities what happens when three civilizations decide to rewrite the laws of physics together. Space itself seemed to shiver as the dimensional breach began to open. Through the rupture came shapes that defied description. Beings that existed in all possible states until observed, then shifted to whichever form would be most devastating to their target. Multiple hostiles emerging, Maya reported calmly. Quantum signatures are everywhere and nowhere. They're operating on at least 7-dimensional planes simultaneously. Just like we practiced, Sarah commanded. Initiate adaptive quantum shields. Kai, random probability jumps. Dr. Marcus, begin the harmonic pulse sequence. Their ship's liquid metal hull flowed and shifted, quantum fields bending reality around them. The void entity's first attack passed through 7 different probability states, but their combined shields held, adapting and flowing around the impossible geometries of the assault. Shield harmonics holding, Maya reported. The Nexus precision grid is stabilizing our quantum fluctuations exactly as predicted. Nomad vessels are moving into position for the counterattack. Sarah watched as the combined fleet executed their carefully prepared strategy. Nexus vessels maintained a perfect geometric formation, their crystalline hulls channeling vast amounts of energy with impossible precision. Human ships darted between them in seemingly random patterns that nevertheless followed a deeper adaptive logic. And the Nomad vessels shifted through quantum states, their dark hulls leaving probability echoes that confused and disrupted the void entity's attacks. Energy spike, Dr. Marcus called out. They're attempting to collapse our quantum fields into a single state. Not today, Sarah muttered. Maya, execute probability scatter. Kai, take us in close, real close. Let's show them what this ship can really do. Their metamorphic vessel surged forward, its hull flowing like liquid thought. The quantum crystal pulsed with power as they approached the nearest void entity, a writhing mass of potential realities that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Now, Sarah commanded, full quantum engagement. The ship's adaptive systems, enhanced by Nexus precision and Nomad understanding, reached out to engage the void entity directly. Instead of trying to force it into a single state, they'd matched its quantum uncertainty perfectly, and then began to guide those probabilities. It's working, Maya exclaimed. The entity's quantum field is synchronizing with ours. We're not destroying it. We're teaching it to exist in our reality. The void entity's form shifted and flowed, gradually settling into a shape that, while still strange, no longer threatened to tear reality apart. Around them, other ships were achieving similar successes, each using their unique strengths in concert with the others. Fascinating, the Archsage's voice carried clear notes of wonder. They never needed to be destroyed. They simply needed to learn how to exist in harmony with defined states while maintaining their quantum nature. Rather like how we learn to appreciate human adaptability without sacrificing our precision, and how humans learn to appreciate Nexus precision without losing our creativity, Sarah added. Sometimes the best solution isn't about winning a fight. It's about finding a way for different approaches to work together. As the last of the void entities transformed from threats into new allies, Sarah looked out at the combined fleet, human, Nexus, Nomad, and now these new quantum beings, all working together in ways that would have seemed impossible just months ago. So, she asked the Archsage, still think human salvage crews can't teach you anything? The crystalline being's form shifted in what had become its version of laughter. Perhaps, Salvager Chen, the greatest discovery is not any single piece of technology, but the infinite possibilities that arise when different perspectives come together. After all, is not the ability to learn from others the highest form of adaptation? Sarah smiled as she watched the flowing patterns on the walls form new configurations, blending mathematics from all 4 civilizations into something entirely new. The universe, it seemed, had more to teach them all, as long as they remained willing to learn. 1 year after the transformation of the void entities, the space around Earth's orbital shipyards buzzed with activity. Ships of all designs, crystalline Nexus vessels, dark-hulled Nomad crafts, and the flowing forms of what were now called the Quantum Collective, moved in harmony with human vessels. At the center of it all floated Sarah Chen's metamorphic ship, now named Harmony, its liquid metal hull reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. The latest quantum integration tests are complete, Maya reported from her enhanced sensor station, where holographic displays showed the interweaving quantum fields of dozens of ships working together. The new hybrid shields are operating at 300% above original specifications. Dr. Marcus looked up from his own work, his eyes bright with the excitement of discovery. The Quantum Collective's insights into probability manipulation have revolutionized our understanding of physics. We're not just building better ships, we're redefining what's possible. Sarah nodded, watching through the viewport as a new vessel took shape in the shipyard. Unlike traditional construction, this ship was being grown through the combined efforts of all four civilizations. Nexus precision laid the quantum foundations, human creativity guided its adaptive systems, nomad expertise wove probability fields through its structure, and the quantum collective infused it with the ability to exist in multiple states simultaneously. To think, the Archsage's voice came through their comm system, its crystalline form appearing on the bridge in person rather than just as an image. A year ago, we would have declared such a project impossible. Our pursuit of perfection had become our greatest limitation, and our human chaos needed your precision to reach its full potential, Sarah replied, smiling at how comfortable the Nexus scientist had become with imperfection. The universe has a way of bringing together what needs to be united. The quantum crystal pulsed gently, its patterns now a constant symphony of mathematical languages from all four civilizations. What had once been seen as a failed prototype had become the seed of a revolution, not just in technology, but in how different species could work together. Incoming transmission from the quantum collective, Maya announced. They're ready to begin the final phase of Project Symphony. Sarah took a deep breath. Project Symphony was the most ambitious undertaking in known space, an attempt to create a network of quantum-linked gates that would allow instant travel anywhere in the galaxy. But unlike traditional gates, these would operate on principles of controlled uncertainty, allowing ships to exist in multiple locations simultaneously before choosing their final destination. All ships in position, Kai reported from his station. The quantum field network is stable and synchronized. The void entities, the quantum collective, have taught us so much about existing in multiple states, Dr. Marcus added. But it's the combination of all our approaches that makes this possible. Nexus precision to maintain the network's stability, human creativity to handle unexpected situations, nomad experience to navigate the quantum states, and the collective's ability to exist everywhere and nowhere. Sarah finished. Ready to make history again, everyone. The Harmony's quantum crystal pulsed with energy as they linked with the gate network. Around them, ships of all four civilizations moved into precise yet fluid formations, their quantum fields synchronizing in a dance of probability and purpose. Gate network powering up, Maya reported. Quantum coherence at optimal levels. All ships reporting ready. Sarah looked at her crew. Human, yes, but now part of something far greater. Then she glanced at the Archsage, whose crystalline form now incorporated flowing patterns that would have once been considered flaws, but were now recognized as signs of growth and adaptation. Initiate Project Symphony, Sarah commanded. Let's show the galaxy what harmony really means. The quantum gates activated simultaneously, their energy patterns weaving together like threads in a cosmic tapestry. For a moment, every ship in the fleet existed everywhere at once, a symphony of possibility made real through the combined wisdom of four civilizations. When reality settled back into familiar patterns, the gate network hummed with stable energy, connecting distant stars in ways that would have seemed like magic just a year before. But Sarah knew it wasn't magic. It was the result of different species learning to see beyond their own limitations and recognize the strength in their differences. Network stability confirmed, Maya announced triumphantly. All quantum signatures are harmonized. The gates are operational. The Archsage's crystalline form sparkled with what Sarah had learned was pure joy. We sought perfection in isolation, never realizing that true perfection lies in harmony with others. Your salvage mission, Sarah Chen, did not just save a ship, it saved us all from our own rigid thinking. Sarah smiled as she watched ships of all four civilizations begin to use the gate network, each adding their own unique signature to the quantum symphony. The flowing patterns on Harmony's walls had become more complex than ever, yet somehow clearer. A visual representation of how different approaches could come together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. You know, she said thoughtfully, When I first found this ship, I thought I was just salvaging abandoned technology. Instead, we ended up salvaging something far more valuable: the ability to see beyond our own perspectives and learn from each other." Dr. Marcus nodded, still monitoring the quantum readings with evident fascination. The mathematics of the universe itself seems to favor collaboration over isolation. Every new discovery we make shows us how interconnected everything truly is. "Speaking of discoveries," Maya interjected, "the long-range quantum sensors are picking up some interesting readings from the galactic core. Patterns that don't match any known civilization." Sarah laughed. "Well, I guess the universe isn't done teaching us new things." She looked at her crew, then at the Arcsage, seeing in all their faces the same excitement for discovery that had started this whole adventure. "Anyone up for another salvage mission?" The quantum crystal pulsed with what felt like anticipation as the Harmony prepared to venture into the unknown once again. But this time, they wouldn't be going alone. As Sarah looked out at the fleet of diverse ships surrounding them, she realized that the greatest treasure they had salvaged wasn't technology or knowledge. It was the understanding that the universe's greatest wonders emerge when different paths converge into a single symphony. "Plot a course for the galactic core," she commanded. "Let's see what other impossible things we can achieve together." As the Harmony led the combined fleet toward new adventures, its quantum fields resonating with the hearts and minds of 4 civilizations working as one, Sarah Chen couldn't help but smile. Sometimes, she reflected, the most valuable things in the universe aren't the perfect ones. They're the ones that teach us how to grow, adapt, and come together in harmony. The Symphony of Stars was just beginning, and its music would echo through the galaxy for generations to come.